Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. We are extremely lucky today. Well, first off, with NRA being in Houston, we get all these wonderful companies right here in our own back door. And we've had the opportunity to do several interviews. There's one individual in particular that anybody who follows my channel knows that we talk about on a regular basis, and that's Centurion Arms. Centurion Arms is a company that I've never, and I solely believe in their products as being combat grade weapons that you would be able to use for self-defense, whether you're law enforcement, military, or whatever. And we're very fortunate to have Monty LeClaire, and even with it being Memorial Day is even better because we have a retired Navy SEAL. So often I get to interview a hero. He doesn't like to hear that, but the reality is this gentleman has served his country in the most elite unit in the world. He's gone into this industry, and that background that he has is literally what makes this equipment what it is. So, Monty, thank you so much for being here.
Right on. Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Centurion Arms has manufactured military-grade rifles, both Mark 12s, Recce rifles, and his probably one of the most interesting things is how does an active-duty SEAL run a business?
Yeah, that was tricky. That was tricky for sure. Basically, when we came up with the designs and stuff, we'd have machine shops do it. And really, at the time, my wife handled most of the stuff. So she would handle the website, she'd handle the emails, the shipping and stuff. A lot of times when there's bulk stuff, or we had OEM at the time, say like Bravo Company was ordering large stuff from us, we were able to make deals with the machine shop to actually package some stuff for us and get it prepped, so it made it easier to ship. So there's some logistical and coordination stuff, but we were actually able to work it out. So we were actually able to start all the way back in 2006 and get the company going while still active duty. I didn't retire until 2015, so we ran it for a good 9 years.
Yeah, I remember using your rails, way back when you first started out, and the quality was excellent, and also it was something that you didn't have to modify your rifle to use. Hey, let's start talking a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
When did you join the Navy?
Oh, let's see. I joined the Navy in 1990. Yeah.
Now, can you give us a little bit of a background of what you did when you started?
Yeah, I started, I wanted to be a SEAL from the time I came in. That whole thing started as, I always wanted to be like, I'd heard of Rangers and Green Berets, so I was big into that. I wanted to do that. And then my dad, whether he regrets it or not, ended up getting me a book called Element of Surprise when I was 16. So I read the first chapter on that about buds, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do right there. So I put the book down, and I started I got to figure out working out. So I did some of the stuff there. Then you went for a run, everything, come back, and I was just glued to that book. Ended up reading it a few times through, and then that was the decision. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So through the rest of high school, I just kind of worked at that. Even at the time, I didn't even know how to swim. So I had to go down and go to the YMCA and figure out how to swim because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So basically, I got in, I did that. I didn't pick up any A schools because I didn't care. I was like, I just want to do that. And then after I qualified for buds in boot camp and did the test, the PT test and stuff, they're like, well, hey, we need corpsmen. We need medics. I was like, okay. So I went ahead and did that. I took the corpsman A school and I did that. And then, from there I ended up going to buds. Actually, first time I got stress fractures. So I got stress fractures in my legs. And at the time, they weren't really short people. They didn't really care. So they just let everybody go that had any issues. But I was able to come back. So I was able to, I was so worried about swimming because I was such not a swimmer, learning just to do it. I focused all my time on swimming and PT. And so when I came back, I was just a little bit better around it. I had enough miles on my legs and enough running and stuff like that, my body was a little bit better prepared for it. And so then it was no problem. I went straight through buds.
So you went right from boot camp right to... You did nothing else?
I did go to A school. Okay. And in A school, I did a lot of swimming and a lot of stuff to prep. And then I ended up going to buds and then ended up getting rolled out of that. And then I had a year that I spent with the Marines as a corpsman. And then I was able to do a lot more running, a lot more swimming, a lot more preparation. And then when I went, it was, not really any major issues.
So around what year was this that you graduated from buds?
I want to say it was in 94.
Okay, so this predates Global War on Terror.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was in well before the Global War on Terror. Like I said, they didn't really need a whole lot of people, so they just let everybody go that didn't, so that was why I got rolled. And then I came back a little while later, and I was in the bicentennial class, Buds Class 200.
Do you have a recollection of your first deployment as a SEAL?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. At that time, they'd closed down Panama, so I went to Puerto Rico at SEAL Team 4. And I had a little bit of a delay after Buds because I did the 18 Delta course. So I went to the Special Forces medical course. So I spent some time that tied up about a year before actually getting to a team. Got to a team, and then you had more training before you got into a platoon. And so went through all of that, and then ended up bombing around the team. You get into a platoon, and then we did some stuff during Puerto Rico, and just spent some time cycling around doing stuff at Team 4. And then when I was at 4, that's when the World Trade Center and all that stuff had hit. So after that, I'd gone back to the 18 Delta Long Course to finish that, to become like an independent duty corpsman, and that's like the full Green Beret medical course that we did. So I finished that off, and then ended up going out west and got with Team 5, and then that's where I started cycling through the war zone. So and went to Iraq, did a few things, did a lot of stuff there, did some PSD stuff, some direct action stuff, some sniper stuff. It was a little roundabout of everything while we were there, and cycled through there. I stayed on the West Coast after I transitioned out there. I was on the East Coast that whole time. Was probably about 6 years, or a little bit over 6 years. And then when I went out west, just because I was force detailed out there because of where they need medical people and stuff, I ended up just staying out there the rest of my time rather than trying to jerk my family around from coast to coast in different places. We just went ahead and homesteaded out there and just stayed out there, and I cycled through various teams out there and Warcom. And
prior to going to the military, what was your experience in firearms?
My experience with firearms was I read all the magazines and oogled over firearms a lot. I did have family members that owned a bunch and had a pretty good collection, and real big war history buffs and stuff. So that really kind of, probably me watching that kind of got me interested in it. And then, but I was much more interested in a lot more of the modern stuff, or the stuff of the time, if you will. Hence the M4 platforms, or at the time it was just M16A2s even, yeah.
Around what time did you start really thinking about Centurion? And what really sparked your interest in having your own business?
Well, I'd been building stuff, and I built stuff for a bunch of other team guys and just some other stuff over time. Guys would buy parts, and I would help them out and get them together. And actually, the first AR I ever built was when I was 18. I'd gotten a lower and built it myself. So I was just always interested in that, and kind of always geeked out on the gun side of it. And so basically, along the way, I would build uppers and stuff. And then finally, when the HK416 came out, so the HK416 came out, and I was always a big fan of the diopter sights because I'd already owned an HK91 and some other stuff. And so when they had that, I was able to get a 416. And with that, what we're able to do is as you know, the receiver on the 416, the top rail is actually taller. It's like 215 thou taller, I think, than a standard M4 platform. So what we did is we got a set of the sights, and we decided to make the bases a little bit taller to make up for that. So you had the proper height for the optics and stuff like that for the sights. So basically what we ended up doing was coming out with the diopter sights and getting the drums on the HK stuff and getting HK drums and mounting them to our sights because we actually like that sight picture a lot. So we're basically modifying that for standard AR platforms.
And this was a need that you guys had for the SEALs, or for your units, that these were made for your actual use?
That was more of a thing for me to do. Yeah, me, and put it on the civilian market. Some of the guys, had gotten some and used them and liked them. It was just the guys that had those preferences for that sight picture and stuff like that. And I was one of those guys, so I kind of made it for me and to put it out there and just to feed that market, if you will, because I was one of those guys. So I had an appreciation for it. So, and
at that point, Centurion Arms.
Yeah, so that basically led into, then I just got into starting to build uppers, which is about the time that I issued my first Mark 12. So the Mark 12 basically kind of came into service and was really the first precision 5.56 rifle that we'd had any exposure to in the teams. I want to say there was a recce rifle beforehand that was much more of a the tier 1 unit, designation stuff, was doing an accurized one. And then when they turned it into an actual program for all of SOCOM, it kind of morphed into the Mark 12 during that whole process. But so they were using a precision, 16-inch platform type rifle, back in the day for that. And like I said, that morphed into that. But I'd gotten issued this, and I was so impressed with the accuracy of it and the suppressor and just the entire package I fell in love with. So I'm like, I'm going to start building these. And so through that, I was able to track back all the chain people that were actually making all the actual guns, like say Vince Jigga, who's now passed away, and Gene Barnett. I was getting Gene Barnett barrels, who's now haven't talked to him in a while. I'm not sure what I heard. I think he might have passed away as well. Most of those guys on that whole pack, I think maybe John Miller. Do you know him?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
John Miller is a very close friend of mine, and that was he was the first person who really was to give me the information regarding the Mark 12 uppers, because his company built them. He built Mod O's and he built Mod 1s. They delivered them right to Crane. And he was the one who really gave me my education on the differences, especially when it came to some of the small details that he said how like in the Mark 12s, when he built them, he preferred the Dimaco made upper receivers. There was something about the precision of those that he liked better. He would talk about the optics. He would talk about issues they had with scope mounts. Some of the Arms products, and then he basically was a proponent for the Mod 1 over the Mod O. He was much more fond of. He said the parts were better. He said that overall he just felt it was a better system, and he was the one who loaned me the upper receivers for Black Rifle 2.
Okay,
I was able to get that, and also through Black Rifle 2, I was the first person I was told that SOCOM officially helped in the PR area for small arms. They actually went into their vaults and took photographs of the prototype SPRs and provided me those pictures to put into the book. I had access to Gus Taylor and all those guys to get the history down from these things, and they came out, and people just loved it. And it also at a point I had the opportunity to go down to Black Hills Ammunition with Jeff Hoffman, which is he's the father of the Mark 262, which that cartridge was made
absolutely
together.
Yep.
And with his Mod 1, he was picking steel at 1,000 yards with a 5.56.
Oh yeah.
And you would have told me that, I probably wouldn't have believed it until he had me doing it. So the weapons platform was just absolutely incredible. Now, when did you start getting involved in building your own handguards?
So that led to basically I started building a lot of the Mark 12 stuff, getting into that, and like I said, the good fortune of dealing with all those guys. So I learned a lot from those guys. Jigga, Gene, and all that. In fact, I spent some time in Gene Barnett's shop while he was making barrels and stuff. He gave me some of the reamers, and I got a lot of the reamer dimensional stuff and all that stuff straight from him. So I still order reamers related to that, and yeah, great guy. So basically that kind of led into making some of the other stuff. So at one point in time when I was on the West Coast, I did cycle through Warcom. So I did a lot of the weapons development stuff for SOCOM. Being kind of a gun geek, I kind of ended up in that seat up there. And we did a lot of the operational testing and stuff, and always dealing with the requirements guys and actually interfacing with a lot of the companies. So during that time frame that I was there, that they had started the SOCOM. Or not the SOCOM, but the SCAR program during that whole thing. So I was able to get a lot of really good education and get an understanding on a lot of the barrel stuff that they're using with the hammer forge and all. So that led into me ordering other barrels and getting recce barrels in and getting hammer forged barrels going and stuff like that I wanted, because I understood and saw the advantage of it, the manufacturing process with it, the materials that were going into it and stuff. So I was one of the early guys in on that whole thing, and I was just lucky enough to see it through all my work stuff. And I'm like, these are great. I want to offer these too. And so how I ended up getting into handguards was at first I was using a lot of other companies' handguards that I could either see functional issues with for the end user at the end as far as rigidity issues and stuff, or rails that, man, these suck to install. They are not any fun to put on the gun. They're not simple, and there's just a better way to do it. So with that, as I'll joke, I made friends, with some of the engineer stuff and people that I'd met along the way. And as I'll joke, I was the guy with a crayon on a nap going, I want it to do this and I want it like this. And they were able to put it into a solid modeling program and kind of help me work through it.
And that was your first was the C4?
Yep, that was the C4. So one of the big things that we wanted to do with this is a lot of the rails that wrap around the barrel nut like this, as you know, are three-piece. They have a yoke on the bottom and then a top. And then since it's a small purchase, with that, you don't get a lot of rigidity out here at the end. So what we were noticing a lot when you built stuff was that when you took a lot of the other rails, you could actually grab the barrel, put it, and then move it, and then you could actually visually see that the rail would never go back to where it was originally. So if you were to take a fall on it and something were to tweak the barrel-rail relationship, and you had sights out on the rail, more than likely it's not going to be sighted anymore, or lasers or anything else like that. So I kind of saw it as a problem, but I liked the idea of how it mounted to the barrel nut and stuff because it was very simple. So what we decided to do is instead of making, the yoke and then the top rails and then the bottom completely separate where it just slid in and had like a spring-loaded detent down here, what we decided to do is just make the whole thing. It's much more complicated to machine, but by making the whole thing one solid piece on the bottom, by the time you get it together and you've got these tabs, as you can see here and fit, that are very snugly fit, that once it's all together, now it's back to being like a one piece. The rigidity of it and the way it mounts gives it the rigidity of a one piece, but allows it to be a two piece and be retrofitted to guns when you can get the delta ring off without having to completely disassemble the gun, which served a certain segment. And we really felt that even if you're building a gun from scratch, it was strong enough and solid enough that you really didn't lose anything over one piece either. So that was kind of what led us to this. So we went ahead and got some patents on it. And
around what year was this that you introduced this?
Ooh, I want to say, I think it was 06.
06?
Yeah. So 06 is when we actually had the idea of it and started moving forward. So 06, that's the 06 in the part number.
Oh, okay.
That's why I had to look at it real quick, because I was like, what is that? Because I know 06 was the year of the part number, and then the month would be 09, and then the 7 is the length of the rail. So that's kind of how the part number came about. So
learn something new every day.
Yeah. So that's our part number. So it's going to be 06 was the year, 09, or is it? Yeah. 90. Yeah. So 9th month. And then 07 is the 7-inch. So then the 12-inch would be the same, but it'd be 1-2 at the end instead of 07.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of how the part numbers came. So it actually came from the year. So, and then, so like on the CMRs there, that's starting out with a 1.5. So that would be 2015.
So basically we have two different rails here, but two different methods of attachment.
Yep, totally. So, yeah, as things were going, and it was actually before M-Lock or Keymod, I was talking to a guy, just we were a little bit slower because I was busy doing stuff and he was busy doing stuff. But yeah, we wanted to do the really slick down direct mount rail before Keymod and before M-Lock even had come out. And that was like the CMR that we that we'd done back then, where everything just directly mounted to the rail. And so then the plan was then the plastic package for really anything I saw that I would use. You know, you had covers, you had light mounts, you had, you know, bipod studs, you had anything you could do, you do with the CMR and just mount it directly. And it would allow it to be a lot thinner, more narrow trim rail on the gun. So that's what we've done. But obviously then you've got companies coming out with Keymod and M-Lock, a lot bigger companies, a lot bigger marketing, a lot, you know what I mean? And could instantly dump a lot more stuff into it. So, which is fine. What we did is we just transitioned, and we transitioned that into a new extrusion and ended up just going with the M-Lock stuff. And it is nice because there's a lot more companies feeding into that. So that's basically how that morphed into our one-piece M-Lock.
Were you able to actually use your products on your duty rifles that you would use?
I use some of my add-on stuff, you know, but you got to be careful what you're allowed to modify, obviously, in the military. And yes, it does even apply in the teams. You can't necessarily carry anything you want at any time.
People have always said that they felt that the SEALs, they could just do anything they want. They could carry, there was no restrictions on that.
Different areas and different places might have different leeway, but it's certainly not a free-for-all. And the vast majority of time, no, you're not. You're going to carry something that's in an inventory. You know, if guys were to do that, they might have gotten away with it. But at the same time, if they'd ever gotten themselves in a situation where something's gonna go up for a legal evaluation or review, you could end up in a lot of issues with that. So it's not a free for all that everybody necessarily thinks it is.
Yeah, that's a big misnomer that you hear all the time.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about these specific rifles for a minute, because starting with the Recce rifle predates the Mark 12.
Yes.
Can you explain exactly what is a Recce rifle?
So the Recce rifle really kind of came about with the Recce mission, obviously. So if you're going to go monitor a target, most of the time on a sniper mission and doing a target monitoring kind of thing, you're not necessarily looking to target people. You're just looking at collecting surveillance on a target. And a lot of times in the environment you're at, the plan is if you're actually shooting, you failed. You know what I mean? So, you know, in that environment, you weren't necessarily needing like high-powered sniper rifles. You weren't needing a lot of stuff. But if you did get into any kind of an altercation, it would be nice to be able to have a precision rifle, you know, that you can kind of take advantage of. You know what I mean? Put a suppressor on it, get some sound suppression, and basically a smaller platform gun, you know, more of just like, you know, an emergency type use gun, if you will, because like I said, the plan's not to engage at all. You're not going there with the intent of, you know, taking somebody out as a sniper. You're just watching a target and monitoring. So, but they did want to be able to have a good, accurate precision weapon with good ammo, Mark 262 from Black Hills. So they kind of developed that whole thing so that if you could, you could do that. And that was kind of a dev group thing. So it was kind of developed in that environment, but obviously that also plays backwards into the designated marksman that kind of like rifles that kind of came out for all of service eventually. Obviously, we ended up with the Mark 12 rifle, so it allowed you to carry a smaller, lighter rifle. And in an emergent situation, you have ammo compatibility with some of the other guys. So it's not meant for green tip, but you can shoot green tip. It's been tested to function with green tip. So you could it'd be really easy for you to go in and do overwatches with a lighter, smaller weapon. I mean, why carry the larger sniper rifles or bolt guns or Mark 11s if, the target set you're on, realistically, the farthest target you're going to take is 300 yards, even 400 or 500 yards. You can do all that with this 5.56 platform. So, that whole thing kind of came out with that mindset. And as you know, the Soviets kind of have a different doctrine, if you will,
yes, they do,
of having it. And so I think a lot of that stuff also fed over into the regular military and army and picking up, not just direct sniper type missions, but DMR type stuff where you have guys mixed in with people who are capable. Because there's a lot of stuff where we mixed in with other troops too. And we were the ones like the DMRs that as they're moving through a town and taking whole areas, you could pop up at certain areas and do overwatches, with this type of gun. And it's just a lot easier to move around, compatible, ammo again. So it fit a really good niche.
This is your recce rifle. Can you give us a little bit of explanation of why you chose parts and how you chose this?
So the recce for us, we weren't necessarily a strong traditionalist, if you will, from the standpoint of going with the actual original like barrel manufacturer and stuff. What we really kind of did is took the Mark 12 because it performed so well and just made it more of a 16-inch version. Chamber-wise, lands and grooves spec-wise, we did make it a mid-length, which I'm trying to think if the original recce's were... they might have actually. I think they were a carbine length barrel, if I remember correctly. Now
it took the mid length a little while to catch on. It was really a Mark Westrom thing. From Armalite. He was the one that Colt had done a mid length as an experimental, way back in the '60s, but it never went anywhere. It was Mark Westrom who really brought the mid length to life.
Yeah, he did it on the 308 platform. It was the carbine, if you will, and then they moved it to the 5.56 as well. So I do go ahead and do a mid-length on it. You know what I mean? So that's some of the stuff that we did. Is, as I say, it's not perfectly like, the perfect clone, but it's kind of like if you're running around, you want to be able to...
You're making a gun better.
Yeah, that's what our kind of take on that was. So we went ahead and went with a mid-length. We used the same chambering that we used in the Mark 12. We used the same spec,
So the ammunition this is designed for is the Mark 12.
Exactly. So that
the ammunition this is designed for is the Mark 262.
Absolutely. So since the 262 is so well known, so prevalent, so, well documented on how it's doing, I didn't want to change anything from this. We just wanted to make a 16-inch format with a mid-length gas system. And so that was kind of the barrel. So it's really just kind of a Mark 12 barrel really kind of turned into a 16-inch recce. We also make a 14.5-inch version. I want to say we're doing either a 13.9 or a 13.7, one of those as well now that we've got in the shop. We got to get out the door. And we actually have even done some as small as 12.5. So, and a lot of people don't realize, the short barrels can shoot really well. It's a good quality barrel. The 12.5, it makes for a nice
within realistic version or within realistic ranges. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've even done a 12.5 version, and we've got it collared up so that you can put a Mark 12 can on it as well. So
one of my biggest pet peeves is drilling and pinning gas blocks. That's something any rifle that be used in the real world. I believe that should be done, and that's something you do. What is your take on drilling and pitting gas blocks?
I'm 100% the same way. If you're going to put a gas block, I would not want to count on set screws on my life. I've seen a lot of those come loose. I've seen a lot of them, when they get hot, even if you put Loctite or some of the adhesives on there, it's just such a simple thing to go ahead and drill and pin it. So that's why we design our gas blocks so that we've got the flat on there, makes it nice and easy to pin for us. And then, as you know, now we have a tab on the gas blocks as well. So, we kind of moved, once again, like the 416 sights, we just kind of moved that over because we saw, we like the sight system. So we moved it over to the standard M4. Another thing that we basically took right from the 416, if you look at the gas blocks and how they key into the barrel, we're like, why aren't people doing this on standard AR? So what we've done is we've created a key seating system, basically, if you will, a tab and a receptacle in the barrel so that everything's lined up. So basically when you put the gas block on, It goes into a keyed tab thing.
You don't have to worry about it being canted or any of that.
Exactly. So it doesn't have to. You don't have to worry about it being canted or anything else. So we make the gas blocks go with it. If you buy the barrel and you want to use somebody else's gas block, the key thing is not going to get in your way. We sell gas blocks without them if people want them for other barrels. But at the same time, we sell the tabbed gas block to go with our barrels. It's nice and low profile. It goes almost under any handguard. It goes under ours, and it goes under almost any handguard if you get the pin gas block with the tab on it. And it just ensures that it's not going to be crooked. It's kind of dummy proofing it, if you will.
So the Recce, there's no specific, there's no mill standards or mill specs for it, or no bomb for it. It's not like the Mark 12. The Mark 12 was actually
a program.
These are the parts. This is what it is. So this could be seen in many different configurations in the real world.
Yeah, at that time that they were doing the Recce rifles, it was really being built. That was one of the few times when they go, oh, they can carry whatever they want. I wouldn't say they could carry what they want, but they had a program going on over at Dev Group where the guns were built in-house. They had gunsmiths over there. They were able to fill a need. They were able to take stuff to the range. They were able to test stuff. Development group. That's what they were doing. They were developing something. So they were developing product that was going to proliferate out later. And so they were able to have their gunsmiths work on these things, get feedback from the end users, tweak them, go up. So yes, there would be variations in all these things. And it was not a standard program of record that was going to be like a force-wide type thing. So basically that's what the Recce rifles really were.
Well, this particular rifle, these are my personal rifles here. This rifle is well under a sub-MOA.
Right.
With Mark 262. There's no question. Now we want to talk about the Mark 12. Now, this rifle is legendary. Can you give us a little bit of your background and your real world use of this, and why you feel the way that you do about it?
Yeah, we'd gotten issued these and initially, and we went right up to the range up at Camp Pendleton and started sighting all of our weapons in to go through our training cycle and deployment. And it had been the first I'd seen of it. I'd heard of the Mod O's running around. We went right to the Mod 1s and got issued these things. And basically we got them and went up there. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. I kind of liked it. I was like, it's got the 18-inch barrel and stuff. But really, once we started doing the sight-ins on them and running the ranges on them, I fell in love with the thing. So instantly.
And of course, this was supposed to originally have a 20-inch barrel. But basically the government said no to the Navy. Said we already have a 20-inch barrel in inventory. So they had to go to a 18-inch so they could have a new barrel.
Yeah, well, there was a big fight on that on the range, I guess, from what I heard. I was not there for that, but the Navy and the guys involved with it from the Navy side won the 16-inch barrel. They were really just trying to make the Recce into the program rifle and create this. But by that time, it had gone past the teams and into SOCOM. So now you've got input from other people who are it's going to be a program of record. You're going to have more people, more units using it, hence the Army and stuff. So now they have representation. So there was a little bit of button heads, and there was a compromise. They weren't going to go with the 16-inch. They wanted a little bit more velocity, and it ended up at an 18-inch. So that's how that ended up. And, the Army ended up using the Mod Zeros at first with all the PRI stuff, and that was a push from their side. Once they kind of fleshed through all that, the Navy was able to do the Mod 1, which is more of what we wanted, which ended up with the Knights and the gas block instead of the other sights and stuff like that. So, but basically, we got these issued. They were phenomenal guns. I don't know a single sniper that didn't love them. I mean, anyone that had any range time with this loved it. And I know that when I shot this thing, we were moving back, doing the yard lines, taking our dope on it, and I remember getting back out to the 600-yard line, and we were using those just like little 3-inch spotters. So, and at 600 yards, I'm like, well, let me see what my point is. I'm far enough away, I get a good grasp on what my point of shift is going to be to throw the can on. So I threw the can on for the first time, shot it, the target goes back and comes back up, and they're like, hey, it was just barely off dead center of the spotter. And so what I did is I reran everything with the can on, and I basically had I had no point of impact shift with the can. And then so obviously I was really in love with it then. We were running the loophole scopes on them. I ended up with one of the 3-9s on it with the illuminated reticle. I did have the arms throw levers on it. And but basically the rifle just performed flawlessly. And like I said, my personal rifle had 0 impact shift with and without can. And so I ended up carrying this thing a lot. If I knew I was going out, I would go ahead and look in the area we're working, what would be most likely the farthest shot. And if I was, limited at probably about 600 yards, this is all, I would just carry this thing. It was great.
So this is one of yours. I know you offer it in a couple different configurations, but this would be correct. Using the Knight's handguard. It's my understanding that Reed only makes these once a year, for the most part, for specifically things like this. I was at the PRI booth just yesterday, and they're still making Mod O clones.
Yep.
Due to the fact that Arms is no longer making products now, they're the Swan sleeves and all that. They're making their own versions of those. And you had provided the rifles for Vickers Guide Volume 2, where we talk about the Mark 12s. You were gracious enough to provide us with a Mod O and a Mod 1 for both of those, for the photographs for that, which is awesome. Again, this is also a sub-MOA rifle, and it's legendary.
Yeah, it's a great setup. I mean, the Knights Rail was a good upgrade for us and the teams over the Motto. I do build Mottos. I do like the Mottos. You know what I mean? Tony and those guys over at PRI, great guys, great products and stuff like that. I guess I just have a fondness for this since I carried, Phil Seeberger made the original cans. Awesome, Then it was Allen Engineering, who I think
this is an Allen Engineering.
That's Allen can.
One of the interesting things about this, which assists in the no point of aim shift, is the way that it mounts.
Yeah, the 2-point mounting system is outstanding.
By having the shoulder here, when this is tightened up, it hits the same way every time.
Yep.
And of course, having the muzzle brake, this also aids in the use of the suppressor. This is probably still one of the best cans that are available today.
I love that can.
I'm not sure if they're still being made by Allen Engineering, but there's another company now that's making them. I'm not sure the name of the company.
Yeah, so the name of that company is Allen. I think has retired, from what I can tell. Nobody, as far as I know, everything dried up on the market, and that word was going around for a while. I reached out and asked. He never really answered me on anything. I do know that Otter Creek is another company,
that's the one. And
I did order 5 of the Otter Creek cans to have around, and I tell you what, I've been very happy with them. So I think they did the design justice.
When I got this from Allen Engineering, where I was talking to him, he was saying that the movie The Lone Survivor really boosted his business.
I believe
because that's what LeClaire carried in there, and he said he could not believe after that movie came out that just the sheer numbers and volumes of these cans that he was making, is everybody wanted to build these.
Yep.
And of course the shortage of the handguards, and of course he had a Mod 1. So what is the current status of this in the operator, in the special operations of the Mark 12?
They basically, when the SCAR program came online, they moved it out. So this basically got terminated out of the team's inventory. I know, because their thought process was the Mark 20 was going to replace all that kind of stuff. And I do remember them discussing the option that when they were dealing with it before, it was the full Mark 20, and it was the SCAR 17, that a 7.75 pound rifle at the time. They felt like if that's what the 308 weighed, there's no reason for them to have a 5.56 sniper rifle in the inventory, because everybody will just plus up. Now, obviously, you're going to lose ammo compatibility and all that other kind of stuff. But then what ended up happening for the sniper rifle, it actually morphed into the Mark 20. So they killed the Mark 12, but they never ended up with the rifle that they thought, other than you could take a standard 17 and then go ahead and put a scope on it, but you didn't have it like kind of really dressed out, if you will, as a sniper rifle like the Mark 12.
What was your thought be between the Mark 20 and the Mark 12? Between the two, what would be
to me, they're completely different. I mean, not completely different, but they're different mission set guns, meaning like, before, like I said, I'd choose the 308 if I was going to shoot out past 600 for some reason, but this gun performed so well inside that envelope and I had all I needed that I would always choose the Mark 12 over it. So when the Mark 20 came online, the Mark 12 was really already out of inventory. But I still think there's a place for it. I still think that they should have kept the Mark 12 in inventory. Since the SCAR 16 basically kind of got completely out of the system, and we kept the M4, and really the SCAR program ended up devolving into an M14 replacement for me. So we actually had a 7.62, and then they've got some bugs to work out through that, and I think that was it could have been a good legitimate placement for that. But as far as the M4 stuff, the sad thing too is a program like that, the JCID's program for adaptation of stuff into the service, is so long and so drawn out sometimes that it's really good for a $50 million jet. It's not necessarily the best for a small arm thing. So the sad thing to say is I know when they started the SCAR program, we were still having a lot of problems with the M4s and the teams. I saw it. By the time the program ended, the M4s were running great. They had enough combat stuff. Colt had come out with the M4, the entire from 727 to the M4 to all that stuff. It worked itself out so well that it was kind of like going, we're not really getting any enhanced reliability out of the, SCAR 16. So it kind of went to the wayside, and everybody, all the problems people were having with the M4 and the AR platform were gone. It's kind of like, it's been in service for so long. It's finally worked itself out.
You have the proper barrel now. Your ambi features. The problem with overheating was gone.
Yep. SOCOM barrels, all that stuff came about. Better rail systems came out. So Mod Block 2. Just the entire package upgraded itself. So that's why I think that went away. But, you can only retrofit an M14 for so long and so much stuff. I mean, there's only so much so much shining you can do on that thing, and it's still just a brick, and it's heavy. So I think it was a good setup for a replacement for that, because at that time, we had the Mark 11s, but they just weren't, the Mod O's were not performing what they should have.
I ran into some Marine snipers in Jordan, and we were talking about those rifles. And one of them referred to it as the lightning rod. It never struck the same place twice.
Yeah, the Mod O's we'd had a lot of issues with. And once again, I just partially probably never got correct because guys are horrible about paperwork. They just want to complain about it, throw it in the case, and toss it and stuff. And the rifle just wasn't as worked out as it should have been. Now what I will say is the limited amount of time that we had the M110s in, or the Mark 12, I think it was Mod 2 for us, those guns actually dropped your jaw if you ran the other ones for a while. This gun actually runs, it actually works. I think Knights obviously went back and really flushed out a lot of bugs in the gun. So by the time it became the 110, and now all the SR25s that I run into, I mean, I've got one now, and the things are great. And I knew team guys who'd gotten out and worked in different areas of the world, if you will, or different organizations, you'll say, that did a bunch of testing, and a lot of them had really despised, the Knights over the 110 and all that other kind of stuff. And I remember talking to one, and I'm like, he goes, yeah, we just tested the new SR25s, the 16-inch barrel version, carbine, looking at carrying that, he's talking about where he's at. And I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, I'm about to get an earful. I'm like, so what'd you think? He goes, I'm running to the store like a scalded dog to buy one. And I was like, really? And so they've really done a lot to bring that. And, had they done that before, maybe there would not have been a SCAR program.
I had a conversation with Trey Knight not too long ago, and I did a review on the the M110. And he had said throughout the process of the Mark 11, through the SR25 to the M110, they had made numerous recommendations to the government to update the gun. He said over close to 100, believe it or not, of different changes over those time periods. And Army said no. Military said no. So they were aware of issues, but trying to get any kind of a change through the U.S. government, especially, well, that's probably not so much for SOCOM, but for regular Army, trying to get any kind of a part changed or anything like that is literally a nightmare. And that's why a lot of these things happen. The manufacturers know about them, they have fixes for them, but if they can't get the government to okay it, they can't make those changes.
Yeah, I mean, the government's a big bureaucracy, so it's a hard ship to turn.
So you also, towards the end of your career, you were the Navy's voice in small arms at SOCOM.
I'd worked at that. That was when I was working at Warcom up there. Yeah, so I was part of the system that was, yes, for sure. So I was one of the active duty guys.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what you did there?
Yeah, basically we'd worked on, while I was there, we'd worked on the whole SCAR program, which had started before I'd gotten there. So I didn't necessarily, have say in necessarily on all the requirements that were being written, and that was written well before, and I understood why it was written. It was written because we were having issues. But by the time you get to the end of the program, you're like, well, all these issues we're creating this weapon system for really don't exist anymore, which is just kind of a sad part. But I did the whole cycle of the SCAR program, doing a lot of the testing on that kind of stuff, doing a lot of the all the documentation of all the stuff related to the SCAR program. Then we also did documentation for PSR to get a new sniper rifle, which is kind of led in. They were going down the 338 route and stuff. And that went on after I had left. And then while I was there, they had started the combat pistol program too. Because in the teams, we'd had the Mark 23, which ended up kind of being a pistol that we didn't intend on getting. And
the Cruiser pistol.
Yeah, Cruiser pistol. It was a very big handgun. I think when they wrote the document, that was a perfect example of people writing a requirements document and coming out the other end, they had a pistol that met the documents requirement, but it wasn't necessarily the pistol that they wanted.
I had a conversation with Gus Taylor about the Mark 23. We're going to talk about that in another video we're going to be doing. And he was claiming that that was an experiment. That was the first weapon that was done under the branch of SOCOM to see if the units could actually work together. It was really much of an experiment, as much as anything. That the pistol did everything that it was supposed to do, and it did it well. But we're going to get into that into another video. So now we say you retire, and now you're on full time with Centurion.
I did, yeah. So basically, after the SOCOM, I did go back to Team 7 for a little bit, and then I went over to the Sniper Schoolhouse, and I did that. I taught Sniper Schoolhouse for the last 3.5 years. That's what took me to Indiana. So when I got out, I just retired, and I was already living in Indiana by the time I retired. Mm-hmm. So I'd already bought a house and everything else out in that area. And so moved shop and basically bought some CNC machines, figured out how to use them, ran them long enough to start hiring machinists and stuff, and just kind of been expanding.
Started going up.
Now
you've had a really good OEM business as well.
We do, actually, yeah. Like back in the day, I made a bunch of rails for Bravo for a while. We were selling them 250 rails of the C4s, 12-inch C4s a month for years. And then basically when I retired, another company that we're very happy to work with, great relationship with, is Colt. So all the enhanced patrol rifles, all the law enforcement guns, I think even some of the other contract stuff that they've gotten that we've provided handguards for them. So we love them. They're the OG on the block, if you will, mm-hmm. for the M4 platform and everything. They're the original gangsters on the whole thing. And they're an awesome company to work with. So, yep, we provide a lot of stuff to them. They're a big portion of our business.
Now, the next rifle we want to talk about over here is a rifle I actually had you build for me.
Okay.
Now, through your company, you offer barrels all different lengths, different profiles. This particular rifle is one that I had requested Monty build for me. This is a totally Centurion-based platform. I had made just a couple small modifications because I happen to like chrome on the carrier. Let's talk a little bit about barrels. Of course, everybody wants the most lightweight gun possible. Mm-hmm. But my opinion, anyways, is there are certain areas in the barrel you don't want to skimp on due to the fact that if you do get in kind of an engagement, you worry about overheating, you worry about accuracy issues. What is your thought on these lightweight pencil barrels versus this for an actual combat rifle?
For a combat rifle, you're going to do a lot of training with, and then you're going to end up doing a lot of, like you said, getting the heavy strings of stuff. A little bit heavier profile barrel is nice. In fact, one of the first hammer forged barrels that we offered was a midweight. Was just for that. So it was basically 750 under the handguard, and we had a little shoulder for the gas block. But it ran all the way out because we wanted a little bit more meat on it, and it was a mid-length system. So I think it just depends on use. A lot of times, if I were basically, I guess if you were, say, going on a recce and I didn't have a specific designated recce rifle, I could see carrying a lightweight if I'm not planning on engagement. But if there's high probability of engagement, I would really rather carry, a little bit heavier barrel, something's a little bit more stout, something I can get a lot more rounds, without it, basically starting to heat up and have greater dispersion of rounds and stuff like that. And it gives you a good training cycle too with these things heavy. And we try to make the handguards really light, but still strong and rigid so that you can add weight to the barrel if you need to without, really kind of overweighting yourself compared to a lot of the other guns. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of obviously heavier barrels.
And you're also going cold hammer forged chrome plated.
Yes.
Can you give us your opinion, chrome plated versus nitride?
That's a sticky one.
But for a combat rifle.
For a combat rifle, to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of nitride at all. Mm-hmm. To be honest, actually, I'll take that back. Pistol barrels and 300 blackout barrels, I'm actually okay with nitride on because they're very low pressure. The stuff with the nitride barrels, I think the chrome is a much better, much better for hard use guns, hard use barrels. It's a lot harder. It'll last a lot longer. So that's why we use it. And we tend to get the inside of the barrel dimensioned so that you can put it on even thicker. Usually about twice the standard spec for it. So which is, as if you will say, they'll call a machine gun spec for harder use, harder regiments of fire, harder strings of fire. So we are big fans of heavier barrels with heavier chrome, if you will. The nitride stuff, I know that there was a lot of work done with some of the Tier 1 units, and they were using it on precision weapons, and I think that's where it kind of showed itself, because it is a surface hardening. So it really is. It's really outstanding for corrosion resistance. There's certain characteristics for the nitriding that are good. One of the downsides is in the throat, just past the chamber, the barrel's still going to get hot. It's still going to expand. It's still going to contract. I mean, it goes deeper than the couple of thousandths. You know, I mean, the heat goes, and the checking goes a little bit deeper than the couple of thousandths that the nitriding sits on the barrel. So with that, you're still going to get that dry lake bed effect. Obviously, as you know, you look at a stainless barrel under a microscope after it's been shot long enough, you get what's called the heat checking, where it looks like a dry lake bed under there. You still are going to get that, even though with the nitriding. Now, the chrome is a thicker, heavier, you know what I mean? So in time, the chrome might wear out, but not so much the heat checking, in time. But where it really affected the precision guns, okay? And once again, maybe not so much on a combat gun that is got nitriding, if you're gonna call it that. But I know on the precision guns, what was happening is now you've taken it and you've made it harder, you've made it more brittle, and then you've heat checked it, and they will flake off a lot easier. So you'll have a degradation in your accuracy a lot quicker. I do know that there's other people that were touting it for precision rifles, but when it got to some of the tier 1 units, I've talked to some of the people and engineers and smiths that really helped them figure out what was going on with it. And at the end of the day, it came down to nitriding certainly for precision guns was not an optimum process.
I completely agree. I have yet to see military contracts that will allow nitride barrels. Everything I've seen for foreign contracts or for any military contracts are still requiring coal mine barrels, whether they're Carl Hammer forged or they're button rifling or whatever.
And a lot of the people new in the market will think, well, the nitriding is the newest, latest, greatest. The problem is nitriding was around in the 50s. It's been around for a while, and it had been worked on. I talked to Mike Rock back in there, and he talked about them working on it in barrels back in the 50s. And obviously, chrome won the day for military stuff back then. And if you think about, even though the government's a hard, big ship to move and turn, the chrome process, they would consider it such a environmental nightmare, EPA, heavily regulated, negative process for the environment, that if it was a way to get rid of it, they would have by now. If they're going to spend almost $100 million on creating green ammo, you know what I mean? To take a process like chrome that costs literally 5 times as much as nitride, it would have been cheaper. If it was really better, it would have been cheaper, better, and better for the environment. It would have been a no-brainer to get them to switch, especially on new weapons programs, say like the SCAR, and it was around back then, or any of these new guns that are coming in. You know what I mean? I think they would have switched by now if it was really that much of a better, because they could have just easily wrote it into the program and said, hey, look, we're saving the environment, at the same time. So, chrome's just still the winner, hands down. It is more expensive, unfortunately, but that's why I've just stuck with it.
Now, you also have your own upper and lower receivers?
We do, yep. We are making our own uppers and lowers in-house.
Forged as well as billet?
Forged as well as billet.
And now you have your own triggers now that you were using Geisley for a while. Now you have a different vendor.
Yep, we do have we are using different triggers now that we've got branded with ourselves, and we stand behind those triggers as well. They pretty much come out the same to me as when I tested them and played with them. I'm like, really, I'm getting the same as the SSA. We don't have anything compatible with, say, an SSAE or anything else like that, but they were as good as the SSA, and all my functional using with them, I was pretty happy, so we went ahead and picked that up. Sometimes we make our own buffer tubes as well, and we do have a 5 length version sometimes that we do for different guns. We got that to kind of go with the 308 guns as well.
So can you give us any kind of a hints on anything you're working on right now?
Oh, well, the biggest thing we're working on is obviously moving the shop. So as I was talking to you a little bit earlier, we've moved out of the old shop. We've got a shop that's probably about 4 times as big. So hopefully moving into town, we'll be able to hire some more staff, get some more stuff out. Once again, we got a few things to deal with. As you see, a lot of stuff's been on stock for a while. So we just got some stuff to work through on our end to get to that point where hopefully we'll be flush on everything real soon. And hopefully we'll be able to keep it there. Because once again, living where we live, running where we're running, you're a limit on people you could hire. I ran out of space. I ran out of power for machines. So we've kind of solved all those problems over the last, year or so. And so we're in the new shop, like I told you, in about the next 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll be fully moved in, and then we're able to start building and really kind of get our feet under us. It was good to start the way we started, but now we're expansion time.
So we obviously we refer people to you. They're always asking, when are the barrels coming? When is this coming? What is your schedule for instance, for barrels? Because obviously I know you're being hit by the same thing everybody else is with materials. Material costs.
That was a big thing for us. We were able to keep a lot of stuff at least cycling through, even if not in all the time, but we could keep stuff cycling through regularly. The COVID thing hit, and there was a lot of issues with it. Luckily, we got ahead of it on a lot of the handguard rail stuff. But as far as barrels, yeah, that really kind of kicked us. Yeah, we had a lot of the same material issues that everybody in the entire industry, and really everybody in all manufacturing processes were having issues with material and stuff like that during the whole lockdown.
Well, your social media, Corey's really good at keeping up people, letting them know when stuff comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And we send a lot of people over your way, and people just absolutely love your gear.
Right. Well, we appreciate it.
They trust it. I've never heard a single complaint. As I said, I stand behind this as something that I have no problem endorsing. And that's why we send people to you.
Right on. Well, we appreciate it. I mean, it goes back to our take on the whole gun. I mean, obviously, my take on it is from my background.
That's what's most important. And that's what I tell people. I say, you have somebody who's carried these guns in the real world who's not going to put anything out he wouldn't carry himself.
Yeah, most of the stuff, I do have that litmus test to look at. I go, okay, is this something that I would put on there? Am I comfortable using this on here? Even if it's something that, if we're responding or doing a specific build for someone, that they want something I wouldn't necessarily want, but it's like, can I put it on in a way that I would trust that, myself? Then I'll go ahead and do stuff like that. Because I guess that's our take on it is we don't look at it as like, hey, this is just a fun toy to go to the range with. Our background kind of sees this as a piece of life support equipment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we don't try to be the cheapest. We try to, like I said, we'll pay 5 times as much for the surface finish on chrome inside.
This is when you're looking at cheap, we're looking at a range toy. If you're looking for something that you're gonna trust your life to, that's not the area where you really want to be skipping on money.
And that's kind of our approach to it, because I guess it's life support equipment. And how often do you go to, hey, I'm going to go skydiving today, and do you walk into the skydiving place and go, can you give me the absolute cheapest parachute?
Yep.
I want the cheapest parachute you could possibly give me today, if you could. So generally, you're not going to do that. So that's kind of our take with the gun. That's why we try to stand behind everything, give good customer service. Everyone has any issues, anything comes up, we always try
people,
to
I think I was telling you earlier that people always comment about how wonderful your customer service is.
Good.
They actually love the little notes from Corey too.
Oh yeah.
And then stickers, everything, and the thank you and all that. I mean, that's a rarity in the industry as well, where you get that personal touch as well.
Yep, the girls are great. They do a great job. So they make sure we're taking care of everybody. And like I said, our take is this is life support equipment. So
we really can't thank you enough for being here, and thank you for your service.
Right.
And your experience in providing this industry with military grade weapons that they can count on, and we really can't wait to see what you're going to come out with next.
Right. Well, we appreciate it. So
thank you very much for
Thank you.
Memorial Day.
Hey, thanks, you too.